Ken James and Jason McKittrick. Brought to you by Cryptocurium.
Mystery attracts mystery. Ever since the wide appearance of my name as a performer of unexplained feats, I have encountered strange narratives and events which my calling has led people to link with my interests and activities. Some of these have been trivial and irrelevant, some deeply dramatic and absorbing, some productive of weird and perilous experiences, and some involving me in extensive scientific and historical research. Many of these matters I have told and shall continue to tell freely, but there is one of which I speak with great reluctance, and which I am now relating only after a session of grilling persuasion from the publishers of this magazine, who had heard vague rumors of it from other members of my family.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to another episode of Learning Lovecraft. I am your host, Jason McKittrick, and joining me, as always, the traveler of the Eldritch Path, Mr. Ken James.
Good evening, folks.
And tonight, as always, we are delving into the mysterious and otherworldly realm of H.P. Lovecraft's cosmic horror. Our focus tonight, under the pyramids.
Yeah, and like I like to do in the beginning of these episodes, wow. As I was saying to our friend Jason here before we started, it's been a while since I've been, read Lovecraft, and as you know, this is my first time through all of this, and, welcome back. And I haven't read since, we recorded our last episode, and I think our last episode was like a Cyclopean Cinema, so it's been even longer. And jumping back into this, I thought I was reading like a novel, how long I thought it was because of going back and forth, trying to understand the word, get back into the flowery descriptions, which, once again, this one's full of. So, as if you are a listener of this show and know me, I tend to like the haunted house spookier, let's go right into, oh, there's a weird guy, let's talk about him. All of a sudden, boom, here comes the Eldritch horror. But this one's another one of those, oh, let's look at the people. So we take a tour of Egypt first. And I was like, all right, are we going to get a fucking sand monster? Is Brendan Fraser going to show up or what?
Well, your Lovecraftian muscle kind of atrophied, so, but we're back on it. And speaking of which, if you're listening to us now, this is our return. We're back in the new iteration of this podcast. We're going to be, this is the free episode of the month. And we if you didn't listen to the episode before this, we kind of go through it and talk about what we're going to be doing. But going forward, we're going to have one free episode a month, and then going forward, you're going to have to join us over on the Patreon because we're two hardworking guys, and.
Yeah. And gosh darn it, we deserve it.
Yeah, sure.
We deserve it.
Exactly. So,
and if I'm going to put myself through the torture that I do sometimes, especially getting back into it, this is clearly a muscle that I haven't worked in a while. And it's like, let's say I used to, run a mile a day, and I'm back to trying to run a mile, and I'm like, that's what my brain is doing right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Ken, what huge and loathsome abnormality was the Sphinx originally carved to represent? We don't know.
One may say that it could be the spirit of Egypt. I don't know.
And that's that classic, weird fiction kind of trope. But this story really is unique. It was ghost written in 1924 for none other than Harry Houdini, which is kind of cool. If you don't really know about this stuff to begin with, it's like H.P. Lovecraft's like, wait, is it Harry Houdini? You're like, oh, okay. It's like it's a mashup. It's like a 1920s mashup, and
right.
You kind of, even if you don't know much about this
crossover, if you will,
a crossover, if you will, for sure. Well, it's like the 1920s world's finest.
Mm-hmm.
This at the time, this man was, a huge celebrity. He was the most famous, escape artist. He was
Elvis. He was Elvis back then.
He not even kinda. He definitely was.
Yeah.
So obviously we, Harry Houdini, we know who he is, but a little bit on our buddy Harry Houdini. He was a Hungarian American illusionist and escape artist, famed for his daring feats of escapology. I think that's a word.
That's like when the bartender calls himself a mixologist.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
exactly.
shut the fuck up.
But, Houdini could back it up.
Right. I'll give him that because that's Harry.
He included breaking out of handcuffs, straitjackets, and sealed containers. Born Eric Weiss in Budapest, he became one of the most famous performers of the early 20th century. Houdini also exposed fraudulent spiritualists and had a strong interest. Oh, he was the man.
Yeah.
He had a strong interest in debunking the supernatural. Mm-hmm. He died following a ruptured appendix. Now this is this is where this
topic
is
of debate.
It's interesting. I mean, first of all, he died on Halloween, 1926,
right.
In Detroit, and he was 52. And his death was caused by what's called peritonitis. I'll go with that.
Sounds good to me.
And that just means a ruptured appendix.
Yeah.
So, and I just wanted to mention this because it's just really interesting. It kind of makes, adds to the mystery of this guy. So some of the details, and there's the great punch incident that occurred. Mm-hmm. So days before his death, while in Montreal, a McGill University student named J. Gordon Whitehead visited Houdini in his dressing room. Whitehead allegedly asked if Houdini could withstand punches to the stomach. And Houdini's like, yeah, what?
Yeah, what? Do you know who I am?
So before Houdini could properly brace himself, though, Whitehead struck him multiple times in the abdomen. Houdini, who had been experiencing stomach pain prior to the incident, worsened afterward. They say that Houdini ignored his growing pain and continued performing, including a show in Detroit where he collapsed on stage several times and continued the show, and was later hospitalized and diagnosed with the ruptured appendix. So although the punch may have aggravated or accelerated his condition, medical opinion remains divided on whether it directly caused the rupture. So he ultimately died from this, and then there was an infection of the abdominal lining brought on by this burst appendix.
Two things. One, little known fact, for the time, Houdini was shredded.
Oh, yeah.
The ladies were like, whoa.
Yeah, you ever see that one picture where he's in the cuffs and he's flexing it all?
He's like, traps. He's like, check out my triceps.
Yeah.
But then also, too, another thing, I had a teacher who told me, I think it might have been middle school. He was like, a lot of people think that he drowned in the water tank. I was like, well, that's what Six Flags, the Houdini Great Escape ride taught me. So I was like, yeah, that's what happened. And he's like, no, you're an idiot.
Right.
I almost said a bad word there. But he's like, no. He's like, what actually happened was, but he told me a different version of it, where an old college buddy of his who was like a strong man, he helped him to perform one of the feats I do is I'm yoked and I can take extreme punches. So he had his buddy do the thing in front of people, and yes, he didn't brace fast enough, and he was like, oh, it's not your fault, it's my fault,
right.
Oh, that was my bad, I didn't clench fast enough. And then he did an act where he gets buried alive. And that's how he died. And I was like, oh, okay. That turns out that guy's wrong too,
Yeah, it is. Now, from what I understand, he was going to get up, and as he was getting up, the dude just started lighting him up, and it was just like, come on, man.
What a jerk off.
Yeah, well, he was, he's like, I'm going to take this guy down a peg, and he ended up killing him. Yeah. Allegedly, his last words were, I'm tired of fighting. And he died.
That's rough.
So it is. So his death on Halloween, like I said, kind of added this like legendary, almost like eerie layer to his mystique. Given his deep interest in the afterlife and his efforts to, stop spiritualism, which that's a whole other, we could have a whole podcast just on Harry Houdini.
Right. We've said it on our other pod before. We would love if someone would make a movie of just him traveling around and like debunking, the hucksters of the world.
Right, but some get a little too mouthy, and they want to throw hands, and then he's just like, "Oh, you don't know who you're fighting." He just rips his shirt off, and he's just ready to go.
And he's like, "Handcuff me, bro. Handcuff me, bro."
He was like 5'2", though. To stay.
Right. Also, then all of a sudden, he comes out of a portal and uppercuts the Warrens.
Sure.
Into the pit in Mortal Kombat.
Sure. I mean, these are all things we would all love to see. So, just want to give a little, behind the scenes on Houdini.
Also, famously contacted by Zach Bagans and Ghost Adventures.
Right. That was a recent development, right? Did that just happen?
I couldn't believe the arrogance. Like, I was like, is it hubris or arrogance? Because, like, think about this. Like, Houdini had a famous pact with his wife that whoever went to the other side first, they would give each other a code word.
Yeah, I think it was like Rosabelle or something.
Yeah, something like that. And whoever, if he would, try to contact her from the other side to prove if there was, the other side. And after years and years of his wife doing seances and stuff, it never happened. He never, said the word. So, but Zach Bagans cracked this one,
Oh, yeah, he sure did.
He got it. He was like, no, we're going to go to the Winchester Mystery House.
Because that's where you go.
Yeah, to get in contact with Houdini, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's more hucksters. They'll always be around. And, Houdini's not there to, punch his head off or whatever he would do.
Hang out with Matt Rife or whatever.
Sure, whatever. So a little bit more on the background of the story before we dive in, because it's interesting to see how this came together. So facing some financial difficulties, Weird Tales, the magazine where this was published, the founder, J.C. Henneberger, was desperate to boost the readership. So he struck a deal with Houdini to lend his name to a series of quote-unquote true supernatural stories and commissioned Lovecraft to ghostwrite one of them. Houdini relayed a rough idea for a terrifying encounter in Egypt that he purportedly had, but Lovecraft, unconvinced, asked for permission to take full artistic license. So, yeah, old HP looked into it, and then he was like, "This is not real." He's like, "This didn't happen." So he asked Henneberger. He was like, "Hey, can I just run with it?" And he was like, "Yeah, just."
Yeah, he's like, "Just, dude, Egyptian ghosts."
Yeah, so for $100, which was big money back in the day, and this was an advance for Lovecraft, which was great for him too. I mean, we've discussed this before about his woes of receiving payment for some of his stories. He delivered a story drenched in research, myth, and I would say some cosmic horror.
I'll tell you what, the first half of this story, the research shows, my friend.
It sure does, and it also, I mean, we'll get to it, but it starts to go into the dreamland stuff a little bit.
I'll tell you,
your favorite.
There was parts this story was losing me.
Glittering sands and golden domes.
Yeah, I was like, all right, we're lowering him. He's talking about crossing, and I'm like, we'll get to that. But like, if
he mentions Celophaeus, I'm going to rip the book in half.
Yeah. When we get to these portions of it, I will take a baseball bat to it because I have to.
Yeah. And you hate it. We want to hear it.
Exactly. This is what we're here to do. We're here to learn Lovecraft and find out what I do and don't like about it.
Yeah, perfect, man. Hey, that's we love it because, hey, I know plenty of people that don't like the Dreamland stuff. In the beginning, I didn't. So,
well, also, too, this first half starts out, it's like, is this like, you ever seen Euro Trip? Is this Fromer's Guide, Is this the... Fromer says, I was like...
Yep. We'll get to it. Just a little bit more here. I just because this is interesting. Before we get into it, little production trivia, I guess we would call it. Lovecraft completed the original manuscript, and then he lost it at Union Station in Providence while he was en route to his wedding.
Why was he bringing it to his wedding?
Oh,
HP. Yeah.
You think he takes days off?
Yeah, you're right.
No.
He's like, hold on, honey, I have to.
Yeah, he had to retype the entire story from memory during his honeymoon in Philadelphia.
All right, yep. Cool. Why were they honeymooning in Philly? I guess that was like a hot, bar scene.
They stayed. Actually, I'm not going to go into those now. I actually went into it and I figured out the hotel that they stayed at is gone, but there's a few other places that they stayed at, and apparently there's this historical society that he may have actually signed a guest book of, and I was kind of looking into it, but I never got any further. But yeah, he spent some time during his honeymoon in Philadelphia. So,
all right,
yeah. The only surviving evidence of the original title, Under the Pyramids, is a classified ad Lovecraft placed in the Providence Journal Lost and Found section, because he just was like, "Hey, has anyone seen my goofy story? I left it at the train station."
Don't read it. Oh my God, don't read it.
Don't read it. It's not done.
Oh my God, don't read it yet. No.
The final version was published in the May, June, July 1924 issue of Weird Tales as Imprisoned with the Pharaohs, with no mention of Lovecraft as the author. His name wouldn't appear alongside it until a 1939 reprint, which was after his death.
It's funny, too. You can picture people back then, because Yeah.
Yeah.
It was way more easy to pull the wool over people's eyes back in the day, you know? So, like,
Yeah.
they're, like, reading this, like, oh, my God.
Yeah. Harry Houdini cheats death.
Yeah, gets lowered into a pyramid. No, came out two drops short of a glass of water he was. Oh, you know, like,
Yeah,
oh.
yeah. That.
Yeah, that's what they did. Harry Houdini fist fights mummies.
Yeah, exactly.
Escaping death of an eldritch horror.
There you go.
Lycopene gets mentioned 5 times in this story.
Yes, it does.
I was like, this fucking word, and that's what the point I got to. I was like, this fucking word again.
Okay, so let's turn to the story itself now, right? It begins with Houdini explaining why he's kept this secret, so long. And like we heard in the opening paragraph, he talks about the reluctance that he has about relating this, and that, the magazine that we're reading was grueling Harry Houdini himself into giving up his story.
Yeah.
Which is wild, because it's like, I don't think it's just a magazine. And so in 1910, after a tour in England, Houdini decides to explore Egypt on his way to Australia, right? He arrives in Port Said, sails to Cairo, and at first he's a little underwhelmed.
Yeah. He's like, oh, wow.
The city's too modern, too European. But then he wanders into Old Cairo.
He's like, there's a lot of white people around here. He's like, what's this about?
It's like a tourist trap, essentially.
Old Cairo is itself a storybook and a dream. Labyrinths of narrow alleys redolent of aromatic secrets. Arabesque balconies and oriels nearly meeting above the cobbled streets. Maelstroms of oriental traffic with strange cries, cracking whips, rattling carts, jingling money, and braying donkeys. Kaleidoscopes of polychrome robes, veils, turbans, and tar bushes. Water carriers and dervishes, dogs and cats, soothsayers and barbers. And over all the whining of blind beggars crouched in alcoves, and the sonorous chanting of muezzins from minarets limned delicately against a sky of deep, unchanging blue.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I was almost checked out.
Yeah, you're like, is this a Dreamland story? Even
I was like, are we Lord Dunsoning this shit again?
You never know. But it's here where he meets his guide, this one Abdul Reyes El Drugman. And he's quite the character, apparently. He's got this commanding air and kind of a weird smile, he says.
Yeah.
He says, a shaken, peculiarly hollow-voiced fellow who looked like a pharaoh. And the police professed not to know him.
Yeah, they're like, ah.
So this Abdul leads Houdini and his wife on a tour through Egypt.
Anytime I hear hollow voice, I'm always like goblin, or ghoul.
Sure.
Like,
it's a dead giveaway.
Yeah, that guy's a ghost.
And then they have this nice tour of Egypt and culminating in this great visit to the pyramids. So before the terror beneath the pyramids begins, Lovecraft takes his time immersing us in Egypt itself.
Yeah.
And the story really kind of is like you said, the first half reads like a dreamlike like travelogue, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Houdini and his wife Bess journeying through, from the bustle of this Port Said to the shadowed streets of Old Cairo. And guided by this man who he kind of, never misses a chance to tell us that there's something just off about this guy.
Something. Oh. And you know what? If you're reading that whole first half, you could easily miss the pointing out there's something up with this guy. You could easily miss that because it's just so much telling me.
Whatever, spices, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's, you're in the streets, you're walking around. We get it. You hate it. You hate Egypt. It was nothing like you thought it was.
Right. I mean, that's the beginning, right? Because he says it's like low dunes of sand, bobbing buoys in shallow water, and a drearily European small town with nothing of interest save the great de Lesseps statue made us anxious to get onto something more worth our while.
Yeah.
It's like, he's like, I've seen this all. I don't.
Yeah. He's like, I could have gone to, a sideshow somewhere, and this would have the same thing.
Sure, but then they take the train to Cairo, following the Suez Canal and the restored Middle Empire freshwater canal, seeing a glimmer of old Egypt along the way. As night falls, Cairo rises before them. And that's where they start to, the magic kind of starts for them. There's almost like a glamour that starts, because he talks about how Cairo was like glimmering, and the growing dusk and like the twinkling of like the stars with the sand, and he's starting to get brought in by the magic. And I think that's where he kind of starts to and I kind of picked up on it again when I reread it this time. I was like, oh, okay, he's kind of like, he's being immersed. This guy who's this supposed magician is being kind of brought into this old magic of Egypt kind of thing.
Right. And you can kind of see where like the stuff he must have studied along the way, like he must have heard so much about, the mysticism of Africa and Egypt and all that stuff. Right. And then like he's there and he's like, there's nothing magical about this. This is about as magical as, me escaping ropes. Like, it's old hat at this point. And then all of a sudden, wait a second. Magic.
Yeah. And, it's kind of like, I guess it's like any place you go to visit. You have all like, and especially some that's just as famous as this is, you go to like the places where everyone's at. Like I said, the tourist traps. And it's just like, you got to ask the locals, like, where's the good stuff? Where's the good stuff?
Right.
And finally the next day, they kind of, he even says it's like, oh, we've kind of penetrated this kind of Arabian Nights kind of atmosphere, and they it's in Cairo here where they kind of find this native quarter, and they're able to, their guide is like, okay, here we go, here's the real stuff, and he gets this really good passage, and I'm going to pull this out because he talks about these like roofed bazaars, and we get this passage.
Spice, perfume, incense, beads, rugs, silks, and brass. Old Mahmoud Suleiman squats cross-legged amidst his gummy bottles, while chattering youths pulverize mustard in the hollowed-out capital of an ancient classic column.
Lovecraft's laying it down there, and by then I'm sure you were like, oh God, where's the monster?
Yeah, I was like, please, spare me.
And after this we get, the tour continues into Cairo's Islamic splendor. Abdul takes them to the Mosque of Sultan Hassan, and they talk about, Saladin's citadel that it looms over the city, and then we gaze, then we get this other great shot, I think this will be our last glittery shot of the Giza sunset, and we got to put this one in here because Lovecraft was definitely flexing his muscles here.
And look down from the dizzying parapet over Mystic Cairo. Mystic Cairo, all golden with its carven domes, its ethereal minarets, and its flaming gardens. Far over the city towered the great Roman dome of the new museum. And beyond it, across the cryptic yellow Nile that is the mother of aeons and dynasties, lurked the menacing sands of the Libyan desert, undulant and iridescent and evil with older arcana. The red sun sank low, bringing the relentless chill of Egyptian dusk, and as it stood poised on the world's rim like that ancient god of Heliopolis, Riharakte, the horizon sun, we saw silhouetted against its vermeil holocaust the black outlines of the pyramids of Giza, the Paleogean tombs there were hoary with 1,000 years. When Tutankhamen mounted his golden throne.
This is where Lovecraft's getting the chills while he's writing his own
he's
words.
like, oh my goodness.
He's like, they're going to love this.
He's like, Howard, you've done it again.
They're like, wait, did Houdini really write this?
Yeah, right. Like, I love that too. Like, I was like, if Houdini was in fact H.P. Lovecraft, anyone that like has read H.P. Lovecraft, especially, his dreamscapes and like, we're traveling on a boat stories, you're like, okay, this is H.P. Lovecraft telling me the size of a door, almost giving me measurements.
Yeah, almost. The wood grain, how it felt.
Yeah.
Man loves his architecture.
I brushed upon the stone and I felt a tingle in my shoulder.
Exactly.
Rich mahogany.
So this is where the thing starts to take a turn, though. There's kind of this, just out of nowhere, and he even says it at the beginning, there's this weird little altercation that kind of just comes out of nowhere with some local guy. He's like, hey. Yeah,
it's almost like a wizard fight, like pulling each other's robes.
Kind of, just two guys, and, it's like, okay, Abdul argues with the guy. He's like, all right, we're going to settle the score because we have this old custom where when we have a little bit of a disagreement, we have a midnight fist fight atop the Great Pyramid.
Yeah. That wasn't a fucking artistic license right there.
I know, and it's kind of funny because it's like Houdini immediately is like, well, yeah, let's check this out. A midnight fight on top of the pyramid. It's like I have to do this.
Yeah. Can I join?
Exactly. So they're up there on the top of the pyramid. They have this fight that kind of comes and goes really quick, and it's like they're ready to kill each other in the afternoon when they had this little disagreement, and then they get up there, they have their quick little fight, and then all of a sudden they're kind of like friends again.
Yeah, Houdini's like, made me forget if there was even a fight at all. How quick it was.
And then he kind of notices that they're kind of speaking, to themselves in their language, and he kind of notices that they're kind of motioning like they kind of know who he is, and they're like, oh, I don't know how he got this impression, but then like, oh, being tied up and being put in water closets, and like it's like they know that he's who he is, and he kind of like starting to get,
they're kind of making fun of him.
Yeah, a little bit. So he starts to, the eyebrow kind of goes up. And then we get this next little fun passage.
Without warning, and doubtless in answer to some subtle sign from Abdul, the entire band of Bedouins precipitated itself upon me, and having produced heavy ropes, soon had me bound as securely as I was ever bound in the course of my life, either on the stage or off. I struggled at first, but soon saw that one man could make no headway against a band of over 20 sinewy barbarians. My hands were tied behind my back, my knees bent to their fullest extent, and my wrists and ankles stoutly linked together with unyielding cords. A stifling gag was forced into my mouth, and a blindfold fastened tightly over my eyes.
Damn. It's almost like they were like, hey, let's get him up to a secluded area, and then just, we'll all gang up.
We'll pretend that we're going to fight.
Yep, and this is one of the parts where I got to give it to Lovecraft, because he's like, you know what? I really got to play up the fact that they're really tying him up really good.
Yeah. He's like, we need to like get it over that like this is some kind of rope I've never seen before.
Right. Where he's like, my hands were tied behind my back and my knees bent to their fullest extent.
This was no normal tie-up.
No, only a superhero could get out of this.
Yeah, this was almost as if the gods of rope themselves have, tied him. They decided to descend upon Egypt and bestow, and then Wonder Woman shows up and you're like,
I mean,
what?
She could have.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, what was it? Moon Knight, and then
Moon Knight. Are you an Egyptian superhero? Then everyone vomits, and then
exactly. So then they carry him on their shoulders, and Houdini is apparently lowered into some kind of mysterious shaft. And at this point, he's I think this is where it starts to take the turn. It's almost like this, wherever he's put into, this is almost like the portal or something.
Yeah.
This is where everything starts to become, where the real becomes unreal. And I also wanted to mention, because this goes back all the way to The Terrible Old Man. And I don't know if you remember where he talks about how things change in the moonlight.
Yes.
Okay. And this is happening at the top of the Great Pyramid in the moonlight. And it's almost like any other time you come up here and go through that, it's just a shaft that you drop down in. But for some reason, because it's at night and they're there at this certain time and they know what they're doing and they're putting him through this hole, it's like something changes.
Right. Now, at this point too, this is where like I got to the point where I was like, oh, thank God that we're actually that we're actually something's happening, because I thought maybe at one point I'm like, are they even gonna make this like supernatural? I was like, are we just gonna talk about Houdini's adventure in like, not even adventure, like his vacation in Egypt?
Houdini's vacation with spices and glittering sands.
Yeah, like him just going, you know what? Egypt's pretty cool. Like, I thought that was going to be the turn.
That's going to be the end, yeah.
Yeah, it was just like, he hated Egypt at first. And then we get to the point where he's like, you know what, Egypt? I'd go again.
Yeah, but totally, this is definitely where it turns, and we get this next passage.
For apparent aeons, I bumped against the stony, irregular sides of a narrow-hewn well, which I took to be one of the numerous burial shafts of the plateau, until the prodigious, almost incredible depth of it robbed me of all bases of conjecture.
And then as he goes down, this is really where you get the turn, because even the language itself starts to change, and we get some of these great paragraphs that we've gotten in previous tales.
One moment I was plunging agonizingly down that narrow well of million-toothed torture, yet the next moment I was soaring on bat wings in the gulfs of hell, swinging free and swoopingly through illimitable miles of boundless, musty space.
Yeah. So I get the picture. I know what's happening there. Yeah. Oh God, this, it's a tight well that you're getting lowered down into. It's,
Yeah.
it's scraping you up. It's
Yeah.
not fine craftsmanship.
Yeah. And this is there was somewhat, from what I understand, there was a little bit of a criticism from Houdini himself because he faints a few times in this.
I was gonna say, when did Houdini become H.P. Lovecraft? With,
hey, Lovecraft has his literary devices.
Yeah.
And one of his devices is when you don't know how to end this scene and you just want to kind of, cut to.
Yeah, cut to.
Have the guy faint.
Yeah, and you're just like, oh.
Right. And, if also considering if Houdini were ever to faint, he'd be pretty screwed because he's in these, these water traps and these, inside a milk bottle with like whatever the heck. Like I was watching
he's got to build a pirate ship in a glass bottle.
Yeah,
while he's in it. Yeah, with his feet while he's in another bottle.
Yeah.
So he's bottle to bottle. One's big, one's tiny.
Yeah. So this is what he's doing. This guy doesn't faint. But when he awakes, he finds himself alone in just this like yawning darkness. He's not doing so great, and he's definitely tied up.
Yeah, and the blindfold's over his eyes, so he's just like in a world of darkness.
And he kind of wakes up with this. It was very cold, and I seemed to detect a faint current of noisome air sweeping across me.
Noisome air.
Yep. But then we get this wonderful next passage.
A few preliminary trials made it clear that little could be accomplished without considerable motion. And it did not surprise me when, after one especially energetic struggle, I began to feel the coils of falling rope as they piled up about me and upon me. Now I saw that it was continuing to pile as no rope of normal length could possibly do. It gained in momentum and became an avalanche of hemp, accumulating mountainously on the floor and half burying me beneath its swiftly multiplying coils. Soon I was completely engulfed and gasping for breath as the increasing convolutions submerged and stifled me.
At this point, before that, I remember, I think that's when he starts to like, all right, I gotta show these guys my stuff. Mm-hmm. And he starts like, he's like, he's like, before I don't really show my motion. And he's like, I'm going to do that again now. So as they don't know up there,
right,
that I'm trying to get out of this.
Right.
And then he starts doing that. And he's like, oh, they must have been able to tell because now I guess they dropped the rope on me.
So they let the rope because it's almost like they're saying like, oh, you can get out of, like I said, milk bottles and crates and water-filled torture chambers, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
They're like, well, why don't you try this? So it's almost like he faints, right? And as he's fainted, they've lowered him, and they've lowered him so far that this rope is piled up on him like a mountainous pile of rope. So it's like, do you go with, okay, this is almost comical how far down this is, or are we now in the realm of like where it's kind of defying physics, kind of like suggesting like the descent wasn't merely into this like stone structure, it was like into something like deeper and like otherworldly, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I mean, of course.
That's where I go with that, because it's like he talks about the rope just piling up because they let it go. And,
what is that, Home Alone 2? With the ropes
exactly.
coming down? Yeah.
Exactly. So it's on the one hand, it's like, wow, this is really deep. But on the other hand, it's like, yeah, but where is he? And does it even matter? You know what I mean? It's like, because there's definitely an air of unrealness here.
At this point, yes.
Sure. And we're not in the, the fun little, the bazaars anymore. Now we're into some...
And he even kind of says, he's like, I felt, I guess I'm passing through some kind of, like the horrors that I'm at now is not where I was. And he kind of alludes to, some kind of veil being punctured.
Right. So at this point, he frees himself because he's Harry Houdini.
Yeah.
And begins to crawl through this blackness. He feels around. He can feel that these towering pillars, and he can kind of tell by feeling around that there's hieroglyphics. And immediately, I was brought back to the Nameless City.
Yeah, we're
these subterranean fumblings.
Right, and I thought about that too as well, because he mentions like crocodile mummies and stuff like that at one point, and I was like, huh, okay.
It's definitely in there. He's like, oh, I got some of this stuff ready to go.
Yeah, and he doesn't go so in depth into the claustrophobia nature of the things, and like in this one he goes more describing cities and stuff. He's like, oh, I'm exhausted from describing other stuff.
Yes.
But he's like, I don't want to get into how cramped it is here.
Right. Exactly.
He's like, it's only cramped in that well portion, and then you pass out.
Right.
And then you come to, and it's like, now it's wide open, buddy, you know?
But at this point, Houdini, you could tell he's like, all right, this is still in my wheelhouse, though, right? He's like, I got out of the ropes. He's like, that was nothing at all. Chump change.
Yeah.
He's like, now I'm feeling my way around in the dark. I could do this all day. And then he hears it.
Yeah, he does.
And we get this passage.
From some still lower chasm in Earth's bowels were proceeding certain sounds, the morbid and millennial tramping of the marching things.
And that's where we'll stop for part 1 of Under the Pyramids. Folks, we'd love to have you join us for part 2, and to do so, we hope you'll become a member over on Patreon with us. To access the rest of the episodes for the month. It's just $5 a month. We really, really do hope you'll join us over there. We're going to have a lot of fun. We got a lot of things planned, and I think you're going to enjoy it.
And also, don't forget there's those other tiers over there.
Oh yeah, we'll
take
talk more about
advantage.
those.
Yeah,
take advantage. All right, so thank you for joining for this episode of Learning Lovecraft. I've been Jason McKittrick.
And I've been Ken James.
And we'll see you beyond the wall of sleep.